Now, for a lot of people, the first thing they heard about this Anita was this statement about her having Meadow in her vehicle. People are now referring to her as the babysitter. So her comment was, I had Meadow and was approved. Wade and I both were with her and Cindy was there. And then she's getting upset and saying that someone is making up lies. Now, I'm not sure if this is from her original post about this or if this is something that someone who's been communicating with her mentioned to me, but along with her having stated that she's given a sworn statement to RCMP, she also claims that she was a court-approved carer for Meadow. Now, I'm not sure how that actually works, but it's not something I've heard of before. So I'm not saying it's not factual, I just find it a bit interesting because we have this story that Meadow was in Cindy and Wade's care, essentially, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, 10 months later, we have this Anita woman introducing herself to that part of the narrative and saying, yeah, she was the court-approved carer for Meadow. And first of all, I'm just wondering how many people have really applied logic to what we are being told here. So first of all, I'm going to finish going through the statements that Anita makes here, and I'm going to also read what Belinda has said with regards to her. So this Anita says that Malaya followed her. She had Meadow and Wade in her car, and RCMP and CPS were both made aware that we were going, and Chief Michelle. And then the version we have here from Belinda, which very similar, Anita, Wade and Malaya went to the reserve. They went to Connie's, where CPS on both sides showed up along with the chief. At this point, where would the receipts come from? I'm sure if Darren putting out her name is credit himself or discredit her. I've seen clips of Cindy's place from her that aren't out in public. This was in response to my video where I questioned her relationship with Cindy because I said I would like to see images, and thankfully one of my subscribers did actually send me a photo that showed her and Cindy together. So that part is verified. But so the story that is coming out from this Anita that she's told people is essentially that Meadow was in her car with Wade, and then it must be that Cindy and Malaya were in a different car following, and they took Meadow to the reserve. Now, this version that she's sharing on Facebook is that they made RCMP and CPS aware where they were going, and the chief. So she's here saying that to debunk this story of Malaya doing a runner. So she's saying, no, we did this legitimately. We let them know that this is what we were doing. And yet it seems that she's told Belinda that they did this, and then every man and his dog showed up to take Meadow off her. Now, here's where I want to apply a little bit of logic to this. Two things that make me question this story. First of all, we have heard from everybody who was at Gairloch Road after the children went missing that essentially Malaya wasn't putting Meadow down. She wasn't letting Meadow out of her sight. Allegedly, Logan offered to take Meadow to her place where she would be away from the property, where she would be safe, and she said Malaya could go with her because she felt that Malaya wasn't going to allow Meadow to be away from her. And yet, allegedly here, Malaya was quite happy to travel in a separate vehicle from her daughter, who she, up until that point, was allegedly inseparable from. Also, this story in terms of all of them, this massive group of people all heading off to Connie's place and letting CPS know beforehand, but then CPS turned up and took Meadow, that doesn't make sense to me either, because if this Anita woman is allegedly court approved, if Meadow is meant to be in a situation where she is supervised by either Wade or Cindy, then there's nothing to say they cannot leave the house with her. So straight up, this makes the story of Meadow being removed from Malaya's care because she did a runner questionable. Because it wasn't Malaya just doing a runner with Meadow on her own and removing her from a situation where she was being supervised by Wade or Cindy or this now additional person, Anita. So there seems to be no logical reason here why simply taking a trip across to go and visit Connie would result in Meadow being removed from Malaya's custody. Why it would result in all these people turning up en masse like this posse to remove Meadow then and there. So again, there's a problem there with the logic that is being applied. Now, the other thing that I'm having trouble with here, aside from simply that we know that from everyone we've heard that Meadow wasn't pretty much going to be out of Malaya's sight most of the time, let's talk about car seats. Now, when Malaya left Gerlock Road, she left Gerlock Road in Cindy's car. You would presume, now we've heard from Logan that she had to get everything out of her car and put it into Cindy's car. Now, what you would have to presume from that is that either Cindy already had a baby seat in her vehicle because, of course, with Meadow being her granddaughter, maybe she has transported her other times. It is not uncommon for grandmothers to have that extra baby seat in the back of their vehicle. Or the baby seat was put in Anita's vehicle at the time to transport Meadow. I've heard that the penalties in Nova Scotia are quite high for anyone who does not have a baby strapped in appropriately. So we can be pretty certain that when they left Gerlock Road that Meadow was strapped into a proper baby seat. Now, Malaya's vehicle was eventually returned to her. It was left on Lansdowne Road and it was towed. Different stories about why it was towed. I suspect that it may just, my theory, and this is pure theory, but my theory is that Daniel would not hand over the keys when Cheryl and that went back to the house to collect Malaya's phone because there was some sort of argument relating to the vehicle. So my theory is that he would not hand over the keys for that vehicle. They came out with the mobile phone but without the vehicle, and so Malaya had to organise to get it towed from that location because she didn't have keys. But she had her vehicle. So her vehicle should have had a baby seat in it, unless that baby seat was in Cindy's vehicle. So why would they suddenly decide to pull that baby seat out of Cindy or Malaya's vehicle and put it in the babysitter's vehicle to transport Meadow, especially when Cindy and Malaya were allegedly travelling directly behind her? It makes no sense. Why would you need to take these two vehicles, and why would you have to transfer the baby seat to the vehicle that doesn't have the baby seat and transport the baby without her mother in a separate vehicle? It just does not make sense. So this story itself does not stand up to the logic test.